Do you ever wonder what you might be getting wrong when it comes to following a low-carb or ketogenic diet? Maybe you've been reluctant to try going low-carb because you've heard it's unhealthy or just another fad diet that doesn't work. Or maybe you've tried keto at some point because, let's be honest, who hasn't? But it just didn't seem to work for you. And maybe you have no idea why. That's why in today's episode, I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the ways that people get keto all wrong. So basically the biggest mistakes people tend to make, especially when just starting out on a low-carb diet. After all, it's always better to learn from someone else's mistakes rather than your own, isn't it? I know mistakes are a fantastic teacher, but it saves so much time and effort to just do something right the first time. So let's spend a little time today talking about all of the things not to do. Welcome to the Ditch the Carbs podcast, brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Ruth Sukup, and here we'll talk about everything from the science of weight loss and metabolic flexibility to practical tips for making your health a priority in the midst of a very busy life. It's the perfect blend of insightful education, practical application, and good old-fashioned motivation. So buckle up, friend, because it's about to get real. Hey there, and welcome back to the Ditch the Carbs podcast. Once again, my name is Ruth Sukup, and I am the founder of Thinlicious and the Thin Adapted System, as well as the New York Times bestselling author of 7 books. And of course, I am a 40-something woman who knows exactly what it's like to struggle with your weight and with eating well and with getting healthy. And believe me, I have made all of the mistakes that I'm going to talk about today, so I am definitely speaking from experience. But if this is your first time listening to this podcast, you might want to go back and listen to the episode where I share my own weight loss journey. It's called The Simple Changes I Made to Lose 40 Pounds and Actually Keep It Off, because then you will have a better idea of how my own journey has inspired me to help other women lose weight and get healthy through our Thinlicious program. But today I want to dive into the nitty-gritty of all of the biggest mistakes that I've made and that I also see so many other people in our program making when it comes to the low carb lifestyle. And I gotta admit, I'm kind of excited about today's episode because this one is gonna be all about tough love and breaking down all those ways that people tend to get low carb diets all wrong. And I'm just gonna be real. Some of these blunders are so common that you might not even realize that you're doing something wrong. You might think that you're getting keto all right, only to find out that you're not actually seeing the results that you want to see. And know that there is no judgment here because, again, I have made these mistakes along the way. But I hope that by chatting about them together, we can learn what not to do so that you can start to see those real results faster and easier than ever before. And we're going to dive into all the good stuff in just a second. But before we do, I got to remind you of a couple of important things because we got a lot of big things going on right now. But first, if you are brand new to this podcast and to the low carb lifestyle, then I would love to send you our free starter guide. It's so helpful for understanding just a little bit of the science behind our program, basically how it works and why it works and why if you've reached a certain age, it might feel like your metabolism has stopped working. And it's totally free for you. You can get that at thinlicious.com/guide. Once again, it is available at thinlicious.com/guide. The second thing that I want to let you know is that if you have been thinking about joining our full program, the Thin Adapted System, which we usually refer to just as TAS or TAS, as a lot of people call it, we will be opening up enrollment in just a couple of weeks. Literally 2 weeks from today, on July 24th, the doors are going to open for just a couple of days. We only open the doors a couple times a year, so this is a big deal. But honestly, if you are serious about finally getting a handle on your health and your weight, and you're ready to have more energy and get your metabolism working again and dramatically reduce inflammation and reverse your insulin resistance and get off all those medications, well, also avoiding all of those mistakes we're going to talk about today, then there really is no better way to do that than by joining TAS. And I know I'm probably a little bit biased here, but guys, it is everything that I wish that I could have had access to years ago, because it would have saved me so much pain and so much frustration and so much struggle. It's an incredible program. It's just so comprehensive and so jam-packed with both the practical tools on the one hand, like you need those things, right? You need the meal plans, you need the shopping lists, and you need all the stuff to help you know what to do. But at the same time, it's got this in-depth physician-led education that like really starts to focus on mindset and the science. And then on top of that, you get all the ongoing support and coaching and accountability that allows you to stay on track. And so that combination of those things is just gold. It's solid gold, because often the hardest part is just sticking with it. So I want you to mark your calendar for July 24th, because that's when the doors are going to open. And if you know you're ready and you want in, then don't wait to enroll, because we only open up a small number of spots each quarter. So you don't want to miss that chance to get in. Got it? Okay, good. So with that out of the way, let's dive in to the topic of the day, all of the biggest mistakes that people tend to make when getting started with a low carb or ketogenic diet. Because I don't want to scare you, but there are some big ones, and they really will hold you back and derail your progress. So let's talk about them, starting with the very first one, which is dun, 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 not eating enough fat, especially in the first 4 to 6 weeks that you are switching to this lifestyle. And I know we touched on this a little bit in last week's episode, but I don't know about you. I grew up hating the word fat, let alone eating it, right? Like, I am a child of the 90s. I really am. That was my jam. I went to high school in the 90s. But don't you remember seeing the words fat-free plastered on literally every single food? I do. I'm not going to lie. I was absolutely obsessed with making sure everything was fat-free. I had this fat counting guide, and I was all about the snack wells and the Special K with the red berries and the fat-free milk. I literally thought, this is embarrassing now, but I literally thought that gummy bears were a healthy snack because they were fat-free. And then remember those Olestra chips, the ones that were supposed to be a fat-free fat, the ones that gave everybody like these massive gastrointestinal issues? You guys, what were we thinking? What were we thinking with all of this stuff? But for those of us who are like me, children of the 80s and 90s, that's what we grew up with. This idea so deeply ingrained inside of us that fat is bad. And so when you think about it, it's not all that surprising that when people start eating low carb, they might, kind of grab onto this idea of cutting out bread and pasta and sugar, which is a good first step. But then they eat mainly meats and vegetables and not nearly enough fat, right? Because we're willing to give up a little bit of the carbohydrates, but then we're still clinging to this idea that like skinless, boneless chicken is the only thing that we can eat with broccoli with no butter, right? Like that's kind of like, if you picture a diet meal in your head, that's what it is. And so, yeah, there's few carbohydrates in there, but there's no fat. And it's really hard to wrap your brain around this idea that more fat is actually good for you, that fat is the hero, not the enemy. And so here's the thing though, the goal in our program here at Thinlicious is for your body to become what we call thin adapted. And that is the state where your body is burning fat for fuel instead of burning carbohydrates for fuel. And that can only happen, you will only become thin adapted where your body is able to burn fat for fuel if you are giving your body enough support through the right kinds of fats. That's only going to happen. You will only become thin adapted if you're eating enough fat. And in the beginning, you have to eat a lot of fat because you're basically training your body, like burn the fat, burn the fat, burn the fat. Here's more fat. So this is what you can burn, right? You want to teach your body to how to burn the fat. So you want to make sure that you're consuming a lot of it, especially in those first 4 to 6 weeks. But also, and this is important to understand too, your body needs fat to function well, especially if you are a woman, and especially if you are a woman of a certain age who has abused your body for years, maybe without even realizing it, by not getting enough healthy fats to allow it to function, right? You need that you need that fat for your brain function. You need it for your overall health, and you need it to help regulate your hormones and to produce the right hormones. And so if you have, for years and years and years been cutting out fat, you've basically thrown your hormones into a tailspin. It's no wonder you're having hormonal issues, right? It's no wonder your metabolism has slowed down because your body has just been craving this essential fat for so long. And when you're trying to lose weight, fat is your friend. It's very filling. It slows down your digestion. It keeps your blood sugar stable for hours. And so if you're not eating enough of it, you're going to feel hungry, you're going to feel deprived, and you're also going to start craving sugar and starches. It's going to be harder to go low carb if you're not eating enough fat. And again, when your body becomes thin adapted, which is the goal of our program, it starts to burn fat instead of carbs for energy. When you don't get enough fat, it has to get the energy somewhere. So guess where it's going to go? If you're not eating carbohydrates and you're not eating fat, your body's going to start to eat your muscles. And that's not good either. That's definitely not what we want, right? We want more lean muscle mass, not less lean muscle mass. So we want to protect our muscles because the less muscle content you have, the slower your metabolism is going to be. And all that hard work you're doing is going to add up to less weight loss. So keep your metabolism running quickly and efficiently by giving your body enough fat, right? It all comes down. And so if you're getting started with a low carb or ketogenic diet, then make sure that you focus on including high quality fats in every single meal, high quality healthy fats. And so that means things like butter, coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, fatty fish, avocados, nuts and seeds, beef, especially the fattier cuts like ribeye, pasteurized pork and poultry, all that good stuff is going to be such a good source of fat. So that is mistake number one. Hopefully I have driven it home, not eating enough healthy fat, especially in the first 4 to 6 weeks. The next really big mistake that people make is to rely only on packaged and highly processed foods. And honestly, I understand this temptation. I am on the go all the time and I don't always feel like cooking. I like to cook when I have time, but I rarely have time to feel like cooking. And if you're like that, right? If you're listening to this podcast in your car while you're multitasking, you're doing all the things, you already know how little time there is in the day. Like, why do we have video conferencing and AI, but no Rosie the robot, right? Remember that from the Jetsons? Like, this isn't fair. We need to make things as easy as possible. And microwave dinners and grab and go keto snacks are quick and easy. And I totally get that. The problem is that so many of those processed low carb, and I'm putting that in air quotes, low carb snacks and desserts are actually loaded with really gross ingredients, right? They're loaded with things that you don't actually want to eat and ingredients that can kick you out of ketosis. And so if you're struggling to get into ketosis, if you've been struggling like, hey, I think I'm eating all the good things. I'm eating all the keto foods. I went to Costco and I loaded up my cart with everything that said keto. Well, that might actually be the problem because keto has become such a buzz phrase these days that a lot of companies are trying to jump on the bandwagon and they don't actually care what kind of ingredients they're putting in their food. I mean, like, let's be honest. Any company that is manufacturing foods that are packed with sugar and with high fructose corn syrup and all these nasty ingredients that are terrible for you, right? We know those are terrible for us. Those companies are just as happy to put in other fake ingredients into your keto things to make the macro count come out ahead, right? They're playing a little game that I like to call the net carb game. And here's a spoiler alert. The only winner in the net carb game is the food companies. It's not you. So really be on the lookout for foods that try to claim low net carbs, especially if they're just adding in a bunch of artificial fiber to their ingredient list. If the total carbs is still really, really high, then it's best as a general rule to stay away. Now, I will say that there's a few companies out there that are reputable. They're not like these multi-billion-dollar companies, and they're putting good ingredients in their food, right? Like I love some of these smaller companies that are like actually committed to a healthy low carb lifestyle. So be on the lookout. I would say Thinlicious is one, right? Our magic protein bars are awesome. I love Real Good Foods for super easy frozen meals that you can feel good about. And Element is awesome for electrolyte. Like there's a few companies out there that you can really feel good about. Like, and I'll tell you about them. But even those ones that you can feel good about, like let's use them in moderation, because packaged foods and processed foods should never be the foundation of your low carb diet. Instead, you really want to focus on real whole foods, meat and full fat dairy and low carb vegetables and healthy fats and low sugar fruits. Those are the kind of foods that are going to nourish your body from the inside out. And that will also naturally provide all of those essential micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals that your body really needs to function at its best. So remember that recommendation to stick with whole foods and avoid the processed stuff also goes for your fats. And I didn't talk about this when I was talking about fats, but like quick sidebar, mayonnaise is delicious. I love mayonnaise, but most commercial brands are terrible for you, right? They're highly processed frankenfoods that are made with highly processed vegetable oil and soybean oil. And those are so inflammatory. And seed oils, you don't want those, right? Healthy fats are good for you, but avoid those processed trans fats as much as possible because they really are not good for you. Like there are some healthy mayonnaise options out there if you love mayonnaise, but just be really careful. Read the ingredients. So that is mistake number 2, relying on too many packaged keto foods, especially the ones that are made by these big multi-billion-dollar companies that don't care about you. Mistake number 3, then, is not getting enough water and electrolytes. I mean, let's be real for a second. People who aren't eating low carb don't drink enough water. So this isn't really a surprising discovery per se, but the reason this can be an issue might actually surprise you. You see, dehydration is a much, much bigger issue when you're not eating carbs. And the reason why is that when your body becomes thin adapted, it starts to produce ketones. And those ketones are what are helping you to burn fat for energy instead of carbs. And that's great. That's exactly what we want to happen. But those ketones are also a diuretic, meaning that they make you have to pee more often, and more pee means less fluid in your body, right? Like you get it. Not only that, eating carbohydrates causes your body to store more sodium, but when you stop eating carbs, you lose a lot of that sodium, which means you actually need more. And so a lot of times that keto flu people talk about is actually a result of not getting enough salt. You don't need less salt, right? A lot of people are worried like, oh my gosh, I can't eat too much salt. I promise you, when you're cutting out the carbs, you can't eat too much salt. You actually need more salt because your body is flushing it out and it's so fast that you need to be able to replenish it, because that's what's going to make you not feel very good. So make a plan to drink as much water and as many electrolytes as you can. We actually have an easy and delicious homemade electrolyte drink recipe on our website on thinlicious.com. I'm also a big fan of the Element brand electrolyte powder, which is spelled LMNT, Element. And it's really good. It's high in salt. It tastes a little salty, which is a little different for an electrolyte drink, but it's really good with really good ingredients. Awesome company too. So as you make a plan to drink water, make a meal plan too, because that's going to help you avoid the next biggest mistake, which is just trying to wing it. And for the record, I'm not talking about chicken wings, which are actually keto friendly, in case you're wondering. But I am talking about just trying to eat low carb without a meal plan, without a food tracker, without kind of an idea of what you're doing, right? So does that mean that you can never just wing it when you are going low carb? Well, no, it doesn't. Eventually, when you get to the maintenance phase, you will start to know your body well enough and you'll know what you're eating well enough that you probably aren't going to have to put everything you eat into a food tracking app. I don't track my food on a daily basis, right? I do every now and then, but on a regular day-to-day basis, no, I kind of got it down. But during those first few months, staying within your macros is really important. We talked about that last week, right? And it's almost impossible to eat the right amount of protein and fat without actually thinking through what you're going to eat. I think it's great if you can do a weekly meal plan. Like that can be really, really helpful. Obviously, if you're in our program, we provide weekly meal plans, which make it even easier. So for tracking, I personally love the Lose It app, but there are lots of other apps that can help you to track your food intake. I talked about a couple of them in last week's episode, which was all about the power of tracking your macros. So definitely go back and listen to that one if you haven't. But planning ahead really is so important as you're just getting started. And if you can do it and plan out your meals for the entire week, and maybe even do a little bit of meal prep in the fridge ahead of time, then you can make your life easier, right? Then you just have stuff that you can grab and go. And that little bit of planning is going to help you stay on track even when things get hectic. And then even if you can't plan out your whole week, then at least make a plan for the day. Think about what you'll eat and then plug in those options into your food tracker just to make sure that you're not going to feel like you blew it come bedtime because you didn't account for that party that you had to go to or that dinner meeting, right? And you ate all the wrong things. So that's big mistake number 4, just trying to wing it. I am telling you right now, it's a recipe for disaster. Don't do it. But we got to move on because the 5th big mistake that I often see with people who are switching to low carb is not getting enough calories. Dun, 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 dun. I know, shocker, right? Eating enough is actually a problem. And here's my theory on this. I think that honestly, this goes back to the fact that so many of us have been on that yo-yo diet cycle for so long that we have somehow been ingrained to believe that the only way to lose weight is to drastically cut calories and completely deprive ourselves of all that is good in the world, right? We don't know any other way to do it. We're either totally healthy and restricting everything we eat, or we are off the wagon and eating all the pie. And that sucks, right? That just sucks. I know that it sucks because I literally spent years making myself miserable with every restrictive fad diet imaginable. I mean, the list I could give you: the 10-day green smoothie diet, the 5-day juice cleanse, the weird GM diet, which you don't look it up, but you might want to after this. There was a day where you ate nothing but bananas, and then another day where all you got was a baked potato. That one was probably the weirdest. I think one day you had to roast a bunch of tomatoes. I didn't make sense to me, right? Thankfully it was only for 7 days, but it was full restriction. There was the cabbage soup diet where you eat nothing but cabbage soup for a week. Even so-called healthy plans like Weight Watchers, which I have done, I did for a long time, right? Basically have you starving yourself by dramatically cutting calories under this guise of being able to eat whatever you want, right? Oh, well, Weight Watchers is great because I can still have a cookie or I can still have this. Well, let me just tell you, those points add up fast. And so if you want to have a cookie, it basically means you're eating nothing else for the rest of the day. But even though most of us have been taught that weight loss is just a matter of calories in and calories out, the reality is not that simple. The number of calories that we're consuming doesn't matter nearly as much as the makeup of those calories and how those calories are affecting our blood sugar and insulin levels. And so if you cut out sugar and carbohydrates and all those foods that are elevating your insulin and spiking your insulin, and instead you start to fill your diet with healthy fats and nutrient-dense proteins, you actually can and should eat a lot more, literally as much as you need to feel full and satisfied without really worrying about it. You do not need to worry about your calories, because this is basically going to start to tell your body, I am okay. I am getting what I need. I am getting all the things I need. And so because I'm okay, I can burn the excess, right? That's what your body is learning. It's learning, okay, well, we got all this stuff. We got all the nutrients we need. We feel good. Our insulin is low. We don't need to store fat. Oh, let's burn it, right? Let's burn it. But what happens when you restrict your calorie intake, your body starts to go into crisis mode, and it starts to think, and this is like ingrained in us from years and years and years, right? From when our hunter and gatherer ancestors needed to store fat, because when they couldn't go kill a buffalo or whatever it was that they did, that they had to rely on their own bodies for sometimes months. So what happens is that when we're restricting calories, our body, because it's genetically programmed to do this, goes into crisis mode. It starts to think, oh, there's a food shortage. I have to conserve energy. I have to protect my vital organs. Everything in your body is only serving to protect those vital organs, to protect your brain function, to protect your heart function. And so it'll start to burn your muscle and burn all the things that you don't want to burn. And your metabolism will start to totally slow down to almost nothing as your body goes into protection mode. And that will happen even when you're eating a low carb diet, but not getting enough calories and not getting enough essential nutrients, right? So you don't really want to do that. You want to make sure that you are telling your body, especially in the beginning when you're making this switch, like, oh, you're getting enough. Now, what happens later is that you'll find that your body just starts to naturally even out. You feel less hungry. You're not putting your body into crisis mode. But in that beginning phases, you do not want to restrict your calories. And let me say this too. If you, like so many women, spent years of your life doing that yo-yo dieting, right? Going from restricting to falling off the wagon to restricting again, it could take a little while for your metabolism to recover and for your body to start functioning the way that it should. And that's one of the big reasons why it gets harder and harder and harder to lose weight as you get older, because you've just damaged your metabolism for so long. You've continually put your body into crisis mode so that when you do eat, it's like, woo, storage, food storage. We got to store because we don't know when we're going to go back into crisis again. And so it's going to take a while. Like, be patient with yourself. Be patient with your body. Like, allow it time to heal. Nurture it, right? Nurture it in a way that, because it's going to take a little while for it to get better. You can let it get better. You don't want to give it another crisis. So nurture your body. It will get better. It might take a little time, but calorie restriction is not the answer. Just trust me on this one. So that is mistake number 5. And finally, mistake number 6 is just simply not setting yourself up for success with the mental game. Basically, it's self-sabotage. And if I am being totally honest with you, this is probably the thing that I see derailing people more than anything else when it comes to actually changing your life and your body and your habits. Because the program itself it's pretty simple, guys. The concept is simple, at least in theory. Eliminate sugar and carbohydrates, eat lots of healthy fats and whole foods, get enough protein. It's not rocket science. There's not some magical secret code that makes it all work, right? It's just changing the way that you eat and nourishing your body with the right foods. And in the process, stabilizing your blood sugar and healing your gut and balancing your hormones. But it's a process that takes time and consistency. You have to stick with it. You have to keep at it. You have to let go of the idea that all of these changes are going to happen overnight and not allow yourself to get frustrated or to go off the rails when it doesn't feel like the change that you want to see is happening fast enough. It's not happening on your timeline. And you also have to stay consistent even when life gets busy and you don't have time to plan, or when you go on vacation, or when it's the holidays, or when you're out with your friends. And because those are the times where that little voice starts to say, go ahead, just eat that pile of fries. This isn't working anyways, right? Like, go ahead. Come on. One little piece of cake isn't going to hurt you. It's just this one time. You're at an Italian restaurant. You're with your friends. Eat the bread, eat the pasta. You don't want to have to miss out, right? You don't want to have to miss out. And that, make no mistake, that voice will show up for you. It will show up in those moments of weakness, but it will also show up when you're doing great. It will show up when you least expect it. And sometimes it will totally derail all of the progress that you've made, because one cheat leads to another cheat, and then another and another and another. And before you know it, you found yourself totally off track. But like I always say, big goals never happen all at once. They are only the result of small steps taken consistently over time. And that is why it is so important to master your mental game and to focus on not just changing the way that you eat, but changing your mindset. It starts with changing the way that you think about food and letting go of all those preconceived beliefs that you've been taught. But then you've also got to examine your own limiting beliefs around food and your body and what you're capable of. And sometimes even deal with like all those deep psychological reasons for why we start sabotaging ourselves. And not only that, you've got to put support and accountability in place, along with a healthy rhythm that's going to keep you focused and keep you on track, even when life gets busy and even when you sometimes do find yourself slipping up or going off the rails, right? What do you have in place to pull yourself back? And honestly, I think that's probably the biggest reason why our TAS program is so amazing and so incredible, and why we have seen such a huge amount of success from our clients. Like literally, it's unprecedented, the percentage of success that we have, because we don't just talk about food. We talk about mindset. We talk about self-sabotage, and we set you up for long-term success with incredible coaching and support and an amazing community and ongoing accountability. And it's all the pieces. And with the way that our program is even structured, there's just this healthy rhythm to keep you on track. Once a quarter, we do our 4-week challenge that helps you to get refocused on your health in a way that's fun and engaging. And so if you're doing great, it's the perfect way to step it up. But if you're struggling, it helps you to get back on the right path. And it really works. And that's why we've seen so many women be so successful this past year, even women who everything that they've tried up to this point has been an abysmal failure. We hear that over and over and over again. I have never had success before. I tried this. I've tried everything, and it never worked. But we've seen women lose 20, 40, 60, even 100 pounds over the last year. It's like, it blows me away. But it's not just the weight loss. It's this change in attitude and in confidence, and this change in deep-seated beliefs. And it just shows what getting your head in the right place can do. So that is mistake number 6 that you have to avoid: self-sabotage. Do not be your own worst enemy, because the only one who can hold you back is you. Whew, preach it. But guys, one more truth. I really do believe this in my core, that switching to a low-carb lifestyle is probably the best thing that you will ever do for your body and your overall health. Even so, even though I believe that into my core, know that there's still a learning curve. The mistakes that I talked about today are really easy to make, and they're pretty common. Pretty much everybody makes them. And so whether you're just getting started or you've been doing this for a while, but you've been frustrated and you feel like something is just a little bit off, hopefully you had at least a few aha moments today that you can start to apply to your own journey as you move forward. And if you're not yet plugged into TAS, then guys, get ready, because like I mentioned way at the beginning of this very long episode, we are going to be opening up a few spots for enrollment just 2 weeks from today on Monday, July 24th. And there really is nothing else like it available online. Our program is so solid. It's so in-depth. It's so well laid out. I can't even say enough good things about it. So just for now, mark your calendar for July 24th so that you can join us, because it really will be the best thing that you ever do. So that is all I have for you today. But in our next episode, we will be chatting with the incredible chef, Kelsey Murphy, who you may remember as the winner of the show MasterChef with Gordon Ramsay. She is so fun, and she's got some awesome advice on how to find a great balance with what you eat, right? Like how to eat for the weekend, how to make it work for your life. I love her philosophy. In the meantime, it would mean so much to me if you are enjoying this content to subscribe or follow this podcast on iTunes or wherever else you like to listen. And not only that, if you know anyone else who would find this content useful, please share it. Please send them a text, share it on social, share it via email, help us get the word out, and leave a review would be awesome too. If you have any questions, if you just want to connect with me, or if you have ideas for future episodes, please also feel free to shoot me an email at hello@thinlicious.com. And then I will see you back here very soon for our next episode. That's all for now.